Hey Saints, alright, the book of Hebrews, I want to give you an overview real quick. The book of Hebrew is easy for the true saint. Now, the ain't, who says he's a saint, can't understand this, but you as saints, your spirit will bear witness. Here it is. Paul is explaining that Jesus is greater than the angels, Jesus is greater than Moses, Jesus is the greatest of all. And he's a priest after the order of Melchizedek. He has an unending priesthood. He went up into heaven and sat down. But the earthly priest never sat down. And in Hebrews it says the comers, the ones who come every year, often to the priest, year after year after year. This is the way the King James says it. They never are, that's never satisfied. So the earthly tabernacle was pointing to the heavenly tabernacle. The earthly priest was a temporary priesthood. The Aaronic priesthood was temporary, but the priesthood after the Melchizedek, an unending priesthood, that's what Jesus, the order of Jesus as a priest. Now, people get confused about Hebrews 6, and they get confused about verses that say that falling back or something like that. Well, you have to remember he's talking to legalistic law keepers. And when Jesus came, he set a new covenant. And what he's saying is, those who fall back are the ones who fall back under the old covenant and do not stand on the true faith. We're saved by faith and faith alone, Ephesians 2 says. Faith alone, not of works, lest any man should boast. So a lot of people misinterpret that book because they don't read the whole book. You can't take one chapter and not understand the whole context. In the book of Galatians, he says, who has bewitched you, O Galatians, that you believe another gospel? He says, you begin in the Spirit. Are you so foolish to begin in the Spirit? You're perfected by the flesh. In Hebrews, he says, let's move on from baptisms and Sabbaths and new moons and washings and all that. Let's go on to perfection. He said, I'll put my laws in your heart. So he's saying this. Those who fall back into perdition is not talking about saints that got saved and fell into sin, because Hebrews 12 says he will spank his own. But it's talking about those who have tasted but not born again and have fallen back away from the finished work of Jesus. So the finished work of Jesus is what it's about. The sin, S-I-N, is different than the sins, S-I-N-S, of the believers. The sin is not trusting in the finished work of Jesus. The sins, S-I-N-S, are the failings or the missings of the saints. In Hebrews 12, God says he will spank his own lest you are bastards. So to make a long story short is this. Hebrews 6, the book of Hebrews, anywhere you think it says you're going to lose your salvation, that's not what he's saying. He's saying those who have tasted but not partake, have not drank. There's a difference between tasting and taking a big gulp. Those who have not rested in the finished work of Jesus, there is a rest for the people of God, Hebrews says, and it's by faith. But those who haven't entered into that rest and have gone back under the Sabbath, the Old Testament covenant, the old law, and not rested in the new covenant, the finished work of Jesus, Jesus on the right hand of God, seated in the heavenlies, with Jesus finished, it is done. Those who don't rest in Jesus and still live under rules and touch not, taste not, they have left the faith, and those are the ones that tasted of the good word, and they did not endure. You endure by faith and faith alone. There is the summary of the book of Hebrews. Whether you like it or not, that is what it's about.